Hello! Today I'm going to be recommending you guys books based on your requests. I asked you guys on Instagram to leave me book recommendation requests, and I said it can be literally anything, tropes, genres, kinds of characters, books that make you cry, like literally anything. And you guys sent in some really good requests. You guys sent in a ton of requests, which is awesome. So I'm gonna be going through all of y'all's requests and recommending books. And I love making my videos interactive like this, where I'm recommending literally what you guys asked for. So if you want to participate in more videos, then make sure to follow me on Instagram. Okay, let's get into it. First up is books that deserve to go viral or underrated romances. A book that I absolutely love is Top Secret by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy, and I've seen basically nobody talk about this book, and I'm not sure why. It's an MM romance, it's enemies to lovers, and friends with benefits to lovers, so it has a lot of tropes. It is about two guys who are frat brothers that hate each other, and they start messaging anonymously on this dating chat app, and they don't know that they're talking to each other, their literal frat brother. And then the second recommendation I have for this is The Wicked Deep. I'm so sad I don't have a physical copy with me. I'm letting my mom borrow it and read it because the cover is gorgeous. It is about this little town that is cursed. Every single year, these witches who are sisters haunt the town. There's also a romance subplot, so if you like fantasy, romance, witches, a little tiny town that's creepy and cursed, then you would love this book. Then thrillers that shocked me, 100% Verity. This book is absolutely crazy. It's a thriller romance, which I love. And it's about Lowen, who is a struggling writer. And she gets hired to write the remaining books in this series on behalf of Verity, who is another writer who's really popular but can't finish writing her series, and we don't know why. So she moves into Verity's house, and Verity's husband, Jeremy, is also living in the house. So there's a romance plot between them, and it's just absolutely crazy. And then my second recommendation for mind-blowing thrillers is The Silent Patient. It is about Alicia, and she kills her husband and then never speaks another word. And then this psychotherapist, Theo, is determined to get her to talk and figure out what happened that night and why she just randomly, seemingly out of the blue, killed her husband. Next up is books with plot twist or mind-blowing plots. Verity and The Silent Patient, which I just talked about, obviously have mind-blowing, crazy plot twist plots, but I thought I would tell you guys about some more plot twist books that are not thrillers. The first one is November 9th by Colleen Hoover, which is a romance, and it has a wild plot twist at the end. This honestly isn't my favorite book ever, but people love this book. It's about Fallon and Ben, and they meet every single year on November 9th. It's the only day they see each other, one day out of the year. And then there's this big crazy reveal from one of the characters at the end that I never saw coming. Secondly, I would recommend the duology We Were Liars and the prequel Family of Liars. It took me a while to get into this book, but if you can stick with it, I thought the ending was crazy. I have a whole reading vlog on We Were Liars. Shocking, literally shocking plot twist. And then I just read Family of Liars, and there's just so many things in this book that I also didn't see coming. Next up, Enemies to Lovers. I think this is my favorite trope ever. I know everyone has heard of this book, but I will recommend it till the day I die, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue. It's about Alex, who is the son of the US president, and Henry, who is a British prince. And they start out hating each other, and then they are forced to be friends for good PR between the countries. So enemies that are literally forced to spend time together and put on a happy, friendly face for the whole world. Other Enemies to Lovers books off the top of my head would be Beach Read, The Hating Game, The Unhoneymooners, and The Spanish Love Deception, which I have not read yet, but I heard is Enemies to Lovers. But those are all really popular books, so if any of you guys have any underrated Enemies to Lovers books, please let me know, because like I said, literally my favorite trope, and I would love to read more Enemies to Lovers books. Next up is Dark Academia, the Atlas 6. It is fantasy. It's about 6 magicians who are competing to get into this secret society, but only 5 of them will make it in. The place they live is so cool and so Dark Academia. It's got this huge library. It's magical, very rich in history of all of the years of the society from the past. Then I haven't read Truly Devious, but I'm so excited to read this series, and I believe it is Dark Academia. It takes place at a famous private school, which is just the perfect Dark Academia vibes. Fake dating, I would say this is my second favorite trope, second to Enemies to Lovers. By far, my favorite fake dating book is The Love Hypothesis. This is about Olive, who is a grad student, and Adam, who is a professor. And long story short, Olive needs to convince her friend that she's dating someone, so she just randomly kisses Adam Carlson, her professor. Literally in her lab at school, and he goes along with her plan, and pretty much the entire book they are fake dating. And then I feel like everyone knows this book about the Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. It is literally fake marriage. Like, take fake dating times 2 and you have this book. It's about Olive and Ethan, and they hate each other, so it's also enemies to lovers, and in order to redeem this free vacation, they have to pretend to be a married couple. Grumpy Sunshine. I would recommend The Fine Print. This book is about Rowan and Zara, and Rowan is Zara's boss at Dreamland, which is an amusement park. He's also super rich. He's like a billionaire, and he's so moody, brooding, like I hate everyone but you kind of vibes, and she's just like this ray of sunshine, and she just slowly breaks this man down until he is happy to. And then I would also recommend The Simple Wild, which takes place in this tiny Alaskan town, and I forgot the main girl's name, but she is like your classic city girl, and she's going to visit her dad in this tiny town. She never really had a relationship with her dad, and that's where she meets this moody pilot, and they end up, of course, falling in love, but he does not want to leave this tiny town, and she, like I said, is like a city girl who doesn't want to live in this tiny town, so they really like struggle and figure out like how are they going to be together. Morally gray / dark romances. Okay, I am going to recommend the Devil's Night series. I've read the first 2 books in the series, Corrupt and Hideaway, but let me warn you, when you say morally gray and dark romance, you better mean morally gray and dark romance, because these are so dark, so crazy, so twisted. The first book, Corrupt, is about Erica and Michael, and Erica put some of Michael's friends in prison, so Michael wants to enact his revenge and ruin her life. So it starts out super dark, and just all these like crazy things happen. A lot of you guys asked for young adult books, no spice books, closed door romances, which pretty much all young adult books I feel like are no spice or closed door romance, so that way they can be appropriate for like teenage years. But I will recommend you guys some of my favorites. First up is Better Than the Movies, which I love so much, and this book is YA, but even if you don't love YA books, it didn't feel like a super young book to me, so I think anyone of any age would like this, and it is no spice. The main character also loves romance movies, which is so cute, so there's a ton of like references and quotes to romance movies. And the 2 main characters are childhood enemies to lovers. They literally start out like hating each other, like playing all these pranks on each other. Then secondly, I would recommend The Summer of Broken Rules. In this book, the girl, I believe, is 18, so not sure if that counts as like YA or a new adult romance, but the book is about Meredith, and she's going to Martha's Vineyard for a week to celebrate her cousin's wedding, and she meets a cute groomsman at the wedding, and at the same time the entire wedding party is playing a giant game of assassin, so they're all running around Martha's Vineyard in the summertime trying to eliminate each other for this game, and it's just super fun. It's so cute, and it's also a perfect summer read. Then throughout this video I will probably mention more YA books, as I mentioned like different tropes and genres, so if I mention YA, it is definitely also going to be no spice. Then we have series. There are so many series that I love, so it's really hard for me to pick just a few to recommend you guys, but a series that I'm absolutely obsessed with, The Inheritance Games. This is the second book in the series that I'm holding up. I am also letting my mom borrow the first book in the series, but this series is so good. It's YA, it's mystery. It is about Avery, and she inherits a ton of money from this random billionaire, and a rule in the will is that in order to get the money, she has to live in the billionaire's house for 1 year along with his disinherited family, which is just so crazy. So she's trying to figure out why the heck this guy left her all this money, and there's a ton of riddles, there's a ton of like secret passageways in the house, and there's also a romance subplot. And then another series that I'm obsessed with right now is The Summer I Turned Pretty. It is also a TV show. I loved the show so much, but the series is perfect for summer. It's YA. It's about Belly, who spends summers at her mom's friend's beach house along with her brother and her mom's friend's 2 sons. So it's also a love triangle between those 2 sons, Conrad and Jeremiah. I recommended closed door romances, so now it's time to talk about spicy romances. Ugly Love is definitely a spicy romance. It's friends with benefits to lovers, so obviously like the friends with the benefits is like a big emphasis in the beginning of the book. And this book also has so much depth. I'm not a huge fan of books that are spicy books just to be spicy. There's nothing wrong with that, but I also want like a really good plot. And this book definitely has great plot and depth to it. The Fine Print, I already talked about this book when I talked about Grumpy Sunshine, but this book, I feel like it didn't have any like super crazy spicy scenes, but there were just a ton of spicy scenes. Then Bare to You, I haven't read yet, but this book literally sounds so steamy. If you're looking for just like a 100% steamy spicy book, I think it would be this book. On the back of the book, it literally says, "I craved his touch like a drug, even knowing it would weaken me. I was flawed and damaged, and he opened those cracks in me so easily." Like, it sounds like your typical angsty, spicy romance, which I'm so excited to read. LGBTQ books, like I mentioned, Red, White, and Royal Blue is an MM romance. Top Secret, which I already mentioned, is an MM romance. And then outside of those two, I would recommend One Last Stop, which is between August and Jane. She runs into Jane on the New York subway every single day on her way to work, so they meet in like little bits and moments every day, which is kind of cool. But then she finds out Jane is literally displaced in time from the 70s, so it's also got this time travel fantastical element to it, so it was a really unique book. Not my favorite book ever, if I'm being honest, but I did like it and I would recommend it if you're looking for an LGBTQ romance. And then Boy Meets Boy, I have not read yet, but it's a tiny book. I think it's under 200 pages, so if you're looking for like fast MM read, I think this would be a good one for that. It's also YA, and high school in this book sounds so fun. It says, the cheerleaders ride Harleys, the homecoming queen is also the football team's star quarterback, and many of the queer kids have been out since elementary school. And then I also believe it's a second chance romance. Books that made me cry, 100% The Song of Achilles. This is the book I have cried in the most. I literally have a whole reading vlog on this book if you want to see me cry. It is a Greek mythology book, but you really don't have to know anything about Greek mythology to read and enjoy this book. It is about Achilles and Patroclus, and oh, this is also an MM romance. And their love for each other is just so strong and so pure, and they have to go through so many conflicts to be together. There's a literal war, there's this crazy prophecy, and it's just so sad. I honestly don't want to tell you anything because I feel like you should go into it blind, but this book made me cry. For another tearjerker, I would recommend 1,000 White Kisses. I didn't actually cry in this book, but it was really sad, and a lot of people say they cry in this book. It's childhood friends to lovers, and I don't want to reveal what the sad part is because that would be a spoiler, but just know there's this really sad reveal at the end. Childhood best friends to strangers to lovers, 100%, Love in Other Words, and Every Summer After. To be honest, both of these books have really similar plots, so I want to tell you the plot of these books at the same time. Both of these books are about two characters that spend every single summer together, and they just grow up together, swimming and hanging out, but then they have this really big falling out that causes them to not speak for over 10 years. So it goes back and forth between the past when they're growing up and spending summers together and present day where they're trying to fix their relationship and rekindle. Small town romances, definitely the duology It Happened in One Summer and Hook, Line, and Sinker. I think it's more meaningful if you read these in order. This is the first one and this is the second one, but you can read each of them as a standalone. Hook, Line, and Sinker is also a grumpy sunshine, and it's about Brendan and Piper. And Piper is like a Miss LA girl, and she gets sent to live in this tiny town by her dad, where she meets Brendan, who is this like brooding fisherman. And then Hook, Line, and Sinker is about Fox and Hannah, and they are friends to lovers. Fox is like this player, but he is secretly like super sweet. And I love this book so much. I think I liked Hook, Line, and Sinker better than It Happened One Summer, just because Fox's character had so much depth to him, and he was such a surprising character to me. I would also recommend Archer's Voice. The main character in this book had something really horrible happen to her, so she literally runs away from her problems to this small town where she meets Archer. And Archer is like the town outcast. Nobody speaks to him. He lives alone. He also literally can't speak, but the main girl befriends him and they strike up this really sweet friendship. Summer books, literally 'tis the season. I think my favorite book that I've read so far this summer is Heartbones. This is a romance, but it's not like a super fluffy, light, happy summer read. It definitely has like drama to it and depth and heart to it. It's about Bea and Samson, and Bea comes from poverty and Samson comes from wealth, so they have very different economic backgrounds, but they're both going to be spending the summer together as neighbors in this beach town. Another summer read that I would recommend is Along for the Ride. It also just came out as a movie, and I feel like this book has a really unique concept. It's about Auden and Eli, and both of them have a ton of trouble sleeping, so they stay up all night hanging out, basically all night every night, and it takes place during summer in this beach town. And then third summer read I recommend is The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hildebrand. This is a summer mystery, so if you don't want a romance but want a mystery, this is a good one. It takes place on Nantucket, and there's a wedding and somebody drowns at the wedding, so they're trying to figure out, is it a murder, is it an accidental death, and if it was a murder, who did it? And we get to follow a ton of different characters in the wedding party, and it reveals like all their secrets and histories and everyone's like complex secret relationships with each other. So super juicy book. I literally just posted reading 7 summer books in 7 days, so if you want even more summer book recs, I would check out that video. Books about people in the book industry. I love books about characters who love books. My number one recommendation for this is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. What's cool about this is that one of the characters is a book agent and the other is a book editor, so they're both in the book industry, but they do 2 different jobs in the book industry. Oh, also this is a good small town romance. Nora and Charlie are like super workaholics, obsessed with their jobs, live in New York City, love books, and they're both spending August in this little tiny town, so it's like a huge change of pace for them. And they know each other just from like a work relationship, but they run into each other, of course, in this tiny town. And then a book that I haven't read yet that's on my TBR is By the Book. The main character works at a publishing house, and then the male love interest is a writer, and he has failed to deliver his manuscript on time, so the main character is sent to go give him a pep talk, get him to finish up that manuscript and deliver it to the publishing house. Sports romances. Of course, everybody knows the Off-Campus series. If you haven't read this series, it is a college hockey series. Definitely my favorite sports romance. Then I would also recommend Long Shot, which is a basketball romance. This book is so sad. It deals with some really intense stuff, so definitely read the trigger warnings. Then 2 sports romances that I haven't read yet that I want to is Throttled by Lauren Asher, and this is a Formula One racing romance. And then the other one on my TBR is Him, which is an MM romance, and it is a hockey romance. And the 2 main characters were friends, but then one of them just cuts the other one off completely, so they haven't spoken in a while, and then it turns out they run into each other later. They both still play hockey, but they play for different teams. Next up is fantasy books. I really haven't read a lot of fantasy, so this is a genre I definitely want to get into more. My favorite and only fantasy I've read is The Atlas 6, which I already talked about for Dark Academia. Like I said, it's about 6 magicians trying to get into the secret society, and it's literally so good. Please read it. But I do have some fantasy books on my TBR. The first one being The Selection, which I know is so popular. It's YA, it's romance, and it's about 35 girls who are competing for the heart of the prince and to live in his castle, literally be his princess. And then also on my fantasy TBR is Shadow and Bone and 6 of Crows, which are 2 different series, and I believe they take place in the same world. I think you're supposed to read Shadow and Bone first and then 6 of Crows. I really don't know a lot about these series. I kind of want to go into them blind, but I've heard so many good things about both of these fantasy series. YA murder mystery. My first recommendation is 14 Ways to Die. This I feel like had a really unique plot. It's about a girl named Jess, and her mom was killed by a serial killer, and the case has never been solved. So she gets the opportunity to go on this like reality, live streamed internet kind of TV show, and she uses that opportunity to tell the world about her mom's story and to investigate this serial killer. Then I'm sure everybody knows A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, definitely the best YA murder mystery out there. Pip decides that she's going to try and solve this old case for her school project, and then it also has a romance subplot, which is super cute. And then a lot of you guys ask me for books that are similar to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, since that series is so popular, so I have 2 recs for you. First up is One of Us is Lying, which is also a YA murder mystery. It is about 5 students who go to detention, and only 4 of them make it out alive, so one of them gets killed in detention. This one doesn't really have that like teen detective trope going on. All of the characters are suspects in the murder, and they're trying to solve the murder in order to clear their name, but it also has a romance subplot that I really love. And then my second rep for similar to A Good Girl's Guide to Murder is None Shall Sleep, and this is definitely the teen detective trope. It's about 2 teenagers, Emma and Travis, and they're recruited by the FBI to interview juvenile serial killers. Then someone said, people in their 20s going through shit. I think everyone in their 20s should read Normal People by Sally Rooney. This book, I just think it dealt with like so many important topics for people in their 20s. It starts with them in high school and then they go through college. I can't remember how many years it spans, but it spans like a good chunk of their like young adult, early 20s life. And it just covers a lot of really good topics like mental health, like feeling awkward and navigating social life. It deals with love and like right person, wrong time is like a common theme throughout the book. And I just like related to this book so much in so many ways. Another good in your 20s is the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series. And these people are going through stuff in their 20s for sure. And it's romance, it's childhood friends to lovers, it is fake dating. It's not like Normal People in the sense that it's like super relatable because they're also famous and super wealthy, which I would think most people in their 20s aren't. But it just has such a great group of friends. And it's an entire 10-book series, so it spans a really large chunk of their life. life. And I just think in general, everyone should read the series, but it's a good book for an in your 20s series as well. Fluffy feel-good books. So these are like perfect romances. If you don't really want anything sad to happen, you just want to feel good, be happy, know everything is gonna work out in the end. For this, I would recommend Tweet Cute. I love this book so much, and I feel like not a lot of people talk about it. It is enemies to lovers, kind of. They're in a Twitter war online, but they don't know that it's each other that they're fighting with online because they also go to high school together in real life. And it takes place in New York City, and it's just like a really cute, like happy YA romance. Also, Since You've Been Gone, it's about this girl whose friend disappears and leaves her behind a bucket list. So she spends all summer completing this bucket list, hoping it'll lead her to her friend, and she falls in love. It's a romance book, and it's just really cute and happy, completing all these like fun bucket list items. Then someone said Studying Abroad or Where She Meets a European, and I would recommend Love and Gelato. This book takes place in Italy. It also just became a movie. I, to be honest, didn't love the movie, but I think it's worth watching if you read the book. It's about a girl whose mom just passes away, and she goes to spend the summer in Italy, and her mom left her behind this diary from when she lived in Italy. So she's reading this diary, she's running around Italy, learning about her mom's past and all her mom's memories, and she also meets this cute boy, so it's a romance too. And I just think it's so cute, and it's a series. I think each book in the series is a standalone, and they also take place in different countries. There's Love and Luck, which takes place in Ireland, and Love and Olives, which takes place in Santorini. Love triangle. Okay, so I would definitely recommend the Inheritance Games. The love triangle in this series is so good, and love triangle is between two brothers. Like I said, it's a YA romance about Avery, who just inherited a ton of money, and she's forced to live with a disinherited family, and two of the brothers, Grayson and Jameson, are the ones in the love triangle. And I don't know what it is, but I normally hate love triangles, but this series, I love the love triangle. Another love triangle book is Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. I actually hated this book. This is my least favorite book of all time, but a ton of people love this book, so I'll still recommend it because you might love it. The reason why I didn't like it is just because I felt like there were some morally gray things going on in the love triangle, and like people were getting hurt, and that made me dislike some of the characters. But if you want like a messy kind of morally gray love triangle, then I think you would like this book. The one bed trope, I would recommend The X Talk. This is also enemies to lovers, fake dating, and workplace romance, so it's got a ton of good tropes. It's about a guy and a girl who work in radio, they're co-workers, and they decide that they're gonna pretend to be exes for this radio show idea that they have. And then I can't quite remember why, but they end up going on like a weekend away, I think to like get to know each other and establish that like history so they can believably pretend that they're exes, and they end up having a one bed trope in that scenario. Some other one bed trope books would be The Honeymooners, People We Meet on Vacation, Spanish Love Deception, which I haven't read, but I heard is one bed trope. Music romance, I feel like this was like a really unique one that I liked. I actually just finished a music romance, which is Sunkissed. It's also a really cute summer read, and it is YA. It takes place at a summer camp, and the guy is a staff member at the camp, and he plays in the camp band, and then the girl is attending the summer camp. And there's this music festival coming up that the guy wants to audition for. He's like super passionate about music, and the girl can sing really good, but she has really bad stage fright. And so it's just so cute how he like helps her get over her stage fright and how they bond over music. Another music romance, Maybe Someday, which I just talked about in the love triangle trope. The guy is also a musician in that book. Pregnancy trope. I know a lot of people hate this trope, myself included, but a lot of you guys requested it. These are kind of gonna be spoilers because normally it's like a surprise we're pregnant kind of thing in these books. So if you don't want these books spoiled, then feel free to like fast forward a little bit and skip across this section. First up is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. This wasn't my favorite book ever. I feel like the pregnancy really just came out of nowhere, and I just don't really like when the characters aren't together and then the pregnancy happens and it's like, oh no, what are we gonna do? And like, did they get together because they loved each other or just because there was a baby? I don't know. But it still was a cute book. It's friends to lovers, and one of the things that I love about this book is that the guy is on like the quieter side and the girl is like super outgoing and spunky, which I feel like isn't normally a common dynamic. Normally that's flipped. Second, for pregnancy trope, I would recommend The Goal, which is the 4th book in the Off-Campus series. I felt like this book actually did the pregnancy trope well. I really liked this book. The two main characters are in college, so it's definitely tough for them to figure out how they're gonna raise this baby. It starts out as a one-night stand and then she gets pregnant, so they also have to figure out, do they even want to be together, because they really don't know each other very well at all. And I just think the guy in this book was so sweet, and he was just willing to be there for her no matter what. And that is all the tropes that I have to talk about. There was literally a billion more that you guys requested, so maybe I'll do a part 2 to this video at some point. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I literally feel out of breath, like I've been talking for like 10 years. And my room is also a mess. There are books absolutely everywhere, all over my floor right now. But with that, I will see you guys next week in my next video. Bye!